Hi, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas. We're here today and wanting to encourage you in this season of difficulty and to give you some ideas of ways to keep your kids calm, cool, and collected. I know you're probably professionals at it by now. When you started out dealing with the coronavirus, things were really upside down, right? Everything changed very quickly and you had to reorganize and restructure life. Hopefully you're finding a little bit of a swing of things, that things are starting to get comfortable and normal. At the same time, maybe you're feeling really exhausted with this process and really drained with constant having to take care of your kids and not having them in a structured environment where you get a little extra time to do some things. So hopefully today we'll give you some ideas of ways to connect with them and also ways to control our thoughts. It's really important that we do some fun things to handle how we think and also just this connection time. I know it can be very stressful when you have so many responsibilities and so many pressures and they're all there at once all the time. And you're not finding escapes probably very often. We can't go and do the things that we've been able to do. It's hard to get together even with family or drop off kids with a grandparent or an aunt or uncle because we're trying to protect each other. So I know that the stress of that can really be mounting up. I want to share a few ideas with you. You can, of course, take them or leave them, but hopefully they will encourage you to keep your home a safe zone, to keep your home a place that keeps you connected, first of all, to God, and keeps your kids connected to you. You're a little bit of a lifeline for them. If you're connected to the Lord, if you're connected and finding some quiet time, even if it's sneaking into the bathroom and having a little extended quiet time, and I know kids knock on the door incessantly, but hopefully you'll get that little bit of moment where you can just be alone with God. And He does miraculous things very quickly. When He knows what we're under. He knows the stress that you have. He knows exactly what pressures you have, what responsibilities you have, and He can do mighty things even in those few moments. So I encourage you, first of all, to stay connected to the Lord and make sure you get that time of quiet with Him. So the first thing I want to share with you about, since you're probably already praying with your kids, I know it might just be a Jesus help me moment, but hopefully, or Jesus help them, hopefully you are praying with your kids, and I'm pretty sure you are. So since you are probably already praying, I just want to encourage you to create a list of the things you're praying for. You and your kiddos, let them write it. It doesn't matter if it looks good, it's not going to be graded. So let them write a list each night that you pray. Just make a little list of a couple of things that you're praying for and that you're believing God to do. That way, when they're answered, you can celebrate together. And notice those prayers and celebrate them and make sure your kids notice when those prayers are answered, because that will build their faith. That will build their trust, not only in what you're doing, but also in our God, our awesome God, who does hear our prayers and answers. Another thing that you can do is, after praying, share your thoughts, share your feelings, share any experiences that you have while you were praying. Let your kids explore that. Did God show them something? Did they think something? And did they feel something? And maybe God is trying to speak to them or through them to speak to you. And you take a little time after praying and do that as well. Find out and assess, is God talking to you as you pray? Are you feeling something, sensing something that maybe God wants to do? And share that with your family. It's just such an excellent opportunity to begin to grow more and more in your connection with God. So since you're also already reading, probably reading a lot of homework, checking a lot of homework, looking up ways to teach, You might be reading a blog every day. I've seen a few blogs that are going out on ways to become a parent and be employed. So I know that there is a lot of information out there, and hopefully you're gathering that for yourself, but I know you're having to read to your kiddos too. So while you're reading to your kiddos, if you're getting the opportunity to choose some stories, begin to read stories of people who have gone through difficult times. I have this really old school Bible storybook. It's so cute. It's such an old one, but the Word of God stands. It doesn't have to be packaged new. You can pull something out of the closet or you can look online, but it has all these amazing stories of the faith. And I just challenge you to find a good little Bible storybook or something on your tablets. I would really challenge you to use a real book, because our kids are so much in front of a screen right now. Even if it is an old book, it's okay. It has meaningful stories of people that have walked with God, who have walked through some really difficult things and have come out looking better, feeling better, knowing that who God is because of those difficult times. So since you're reading those things, make sure that you are finding those stories in the Word of God and sharing it with your kids in a way that's good for their age. The amazing thing about the era we live in, the age we live in, is that we have Bibles for every age, beginning with those little flip books that are thick and cardboard and can be chewed on, all the way to the teenage study Bibles. So we live in a pretty good time to be able to get a hold of little Bibles that work with every age group. So I also want to encourage you to review some biographies of missionaries, biographies of pastors, biographies of people who have walked in the faith, laypersons, people like Smith Wigglesworth, people like Corrie ten Boom. She was a watchmaker. People like David Wilkerson or Nikki Cruz. That story may be a little tough for little kids, but teenagers definitely those would work for. Some other stories of Amazing Grace. There's a book called Amazing Grace by Eric Metaxas, and it tells the story of the change of slavery, of the abolition of slavery in England. But there are kid version biographies that are very helpful in letting your kids see the struggles that people have gone through in the past. And it connects them to the reality that if other people have come through hard things, they can too. And also, they can see how other people came through those hard things. Many times when we explore the biographies of people in the past, we see new tools. We see maybe old tools that we forgot to use. And it's really important to see that and encourage ourselves on that. And times where people have had it severely worse, we could say, you might feel like this is the worst experience you've gone through. And I pray that God will encourage your heart, that He's with you, even if this is the worst time for you. Even if this is the darkest season you've walked through, that He will encourage you, that He's with you, He hasn't forgotten you, He's leading you, and He will see you through to the other side. Another thing I want to encourage you to do is talk about the things that your family has in common with the story, with the person in the biography or autobiography. See and explore with your kiddos what that looks like. Is our life like that? What is like similar in our life and their life, or our time in this quarantine? Is there anything alike? What about things that are different? How are things different for us than they were then? Those are just some educational tools you can add, but also it connects them to you, and that is really the goal. We want our kids connected. We want them calm. We want them relaxed in this season. Another thing I want to challenge you to do is to tell your family story or stories from your family. If you're unsure or if you don't really know what your family story is, you could ask. You could ask a family member if you have that opportunity, and get some stories of times that you were a kid, maybe times when your parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles were a kid, times that hopefully they saw God. If you don't have that story, if your family didn't walk with God, maybe they can still tell stories about their childhood, because there's value in that. We know that God is with them. We know that God longs for a relationship with all of us. It's his desire that no one be lost. So we know that there are stories. So reflect back for yourself. Think of some times in your childhood that maybe things were scary. Maybe things were unsure, uncertain, and how you handled that and how your family handled that. Share those stories with your kids. Let them know that you were like them and that you had the same kind of feelings they might have right now. Share with them the good stories. Share with them some of the hard stories. Be careful to put them in age-appropriate ways of communicating. Don't tell all of the extreme bad things to the little ones that won't be able to grasp that and handle that well. But just let them know gently how things were for you, and tell them the fun things, ways you played with your friends and times that you remember, and share those as kind of encouragement that we're going to get there again. We're going to have fun again. And yes, not all the time is fun, right? We have good times, we have bad times. And it's important to share both of those. So I do want to challenge you to share your family stories. A couple more things in your family story. Reflect on the things that you're grateful for right now. Reflect on how God has helped you in the here and now through this season. What are you grateful for? Tell that to your kids. Let your kids tell you. You might be so surprised and encouraged to hear what your kiddo has to say about what they're thankful for, what they're grateful for. Begin to stir that up within your child, within yourself, the things that are good. As we notice the things we're grateful for, it's so much easier to stop focusing on the things that are just driving us crazy or are really hard. It's important that we shift our thinking, that we shift our attention, even if it's just once a day, when you're sitting with your kids before bedtime or at the breakfast table, and you start to talk about what you're grateful for today. It's a great time. And then also, tell the story of your quarantine and make up different endings. Make up happy endings. Let your kids' imagination run wild. Let your imagination run wild. And begin to tell the story from beginning to end of what happened when it started. Let your kids tell their experience of how this all happened, when they found out about the coronavirus, or when they found out that they had to stay at home. Tell the story with each other. Make up those happy endings, the what if. What if, when this is all over, or just however you want to do it, you be creative. Let your kids be creative. Have fun with it, because you'll want to have some enjoyment in this season, right? All right, so we're going to shift over to feelings. Staying calm, cool, and collected means that we've got to bring our emotions under control. An important way to do that is teaching our kids emotion vocabulary, teaching them what it looks like when they feel different emotions. There are a lot of emotion charts out there. All you have to do is Google and look it up on Amazon, all kinds of ways. But there are all these emotion charts. And one of my favorites is on howwelove.com, and it's called Soul Words. Now, this one is my favorite because it is a really extensive list. But for kids, I prefer something with a face, with a picture. And we'll throw the slide of that up. But while you're teaching your kiddos about emotions, you want them to see what the expression looks like. And it's okay for you to name it. So if your child looks sad, just say, looks like you're feeling sad. If they're looking frustrated, your face looks frustrated. That way they start to connect their emotion with their expression. And they also realize that you're paying attention. You're aware. You're seeing them. You're not just seeing their outside, but you're seeing what's going on inside. And that is very important to them, to know that they are seen and they are known. Just like us. We want to be seen and known, right? We want to be seen by God. We want to be known by God. So we definitely want to share those things and help train them in the feelings. Okay, so let me just read that over real quickly. Teach them the emotion language and ask your kiddos to tell you when they feel different emotions. That's a really good way. It's not when they're in the middle of the emotion, but after the fact, or just as you're driving or walking or doing chalk on the sidewalks. Ask them when they felt different emotions. Hey, tell me about when you were feeling sad. Let them try to remember and reflect on that. And resist any desire to fix it. Just listen. Just practice hearing what your kid says about how they feel, what's going on inside of them. If their emotions were uncomfortable, ask them what they did to change it. To be honest, most of the time they're going to probably make up a lot of it because kids' memories, when they're questioned, are very different than when they just come up with something. Their own memories pop into their heads, but even as adults, sometimes when somebody asks you a question to remember something, it's hard to come up with it. So even if they make up a story about when they felt a feeling and what they did to fix it, that's okay, because they're just using their creative brain, their imagination. It's not necessarily lying at that moment. Of course, we want to protect integrity and teach honesty, but in that time, you can just, if you think it's a lie, you can say, that sounds like you're using your imagination instead of real life. And that's okay, to just help them to understand the difference in that. So we definitely want to teach the feelings and get them accustomed, and yourself too, accustomed to noticing what you feel and noticing how your body looks when you're feeling that way. Sometimes we can think we feel one feeling and it's really another one. So it's important to pause and notice that, and helping our kids learn to do that. I've noticed at times that I'm nervous, but I think I'm stressed. So my instinct might be like, I'm feeling really stressed. But if I stop and think, why am I feeling stressed? I'll even notice a deeper emotion. No, I'm feeling nervous about that situation. And I'll know why then I'm feeling what I thought was stress. And then I can process through the nervousness. Why am I feeling nervous? And then what do I need to do about it? Maybe I need to relax or just say, it's going to be okay. Those things help to notice what's really going on and why you're feeling it. And it's so important that we teach our kids to do that. So I wanted to share some stressors that your children may be feeling right now and that are common for kids. I looked up several different studies that talk about the stressors that kids feel in general, but also in this time. So I'm going to just list them out for you. Number one, change. We're all experiencing change, and a lot of stress comes from change. So it can be change of what you have, change of where you live, change of what your family looks like, change of where you're going from day to day. All of these things have happened to us. We are all in a situation where everything is different, and that is very stressful for kids. So be mindful when your kids may be having big feelings that they also are experiencing a lot of change and a lot of stress. So if they're more cranky, more disobedient, more disrespectful, sorry, it's probably the stress they're under. And you may think, what are you kidding? They're a kid, they have no stress, they don't have to do anything, they lay around and look at their tablet all day. But there is this internal stress that we feel when things change. Unmet physical needs, unmet safety or hunger or illness, disrupted sleep. Those are all things that create pressure for kids, and it creates pressure for us too. It's important that we're attentive to what's going on for us And I've heard so many people talking about their sleep patterns are so different. There's a lot of fear of not having food. There's a lot of fear of, are bills going to be paid? Will we even have a home? All of these things, though they may not be experienced in the moment, the fear of it can create such stress for our kiddos too. And hearing adults talking about the world events or even their family stress is something that can really significantly impact kids. And something interesting that I've learned about children is that they always think it's their fault. They always think that they have a power that, they don't, but they always believe it's something they did or something they could do better. And we have this need to teach our kids that it isn't their fault, that they can't fix it. And neither can we, right? So remind your kids when they may hear you talking about what's going on, or they may have the news on, you're probably desensitized a little bit being an adult, that when the news is playing, it just goes in one ear and out the other. But for your kid, it can be really overwhelming. It can be really shocking, but they may never verbalize that or tell you, and it just builds up. So be cautious with what they hear. That doesn't mean don't let them know anything that's going on. We don't want to shield them completely, because a lack of information stresses us all out. So give them enough information that is age appropriate, that they know what to expect, they know what's going on, they know why things are different, but that they're not overwhelmed by the mass tragedies of the world and all the deaths and things like that. So also overactive schedules is a significant stressor. Right now, your schedule may not be overactive. It may be underactive, and that can be exhausting as well. It can be exhausting for your kids, believe it or not. They may be doing what looks like they want to do, which is maybe being on screens a lot. But that lack of structure, that lack of connection, it can create a lot of stress. Lack of routine. Our kiddos are used to so much routine, and it's so healthy for all of us to have routine. It takes the brain work away. When we have something we know we have to do, we get up, we do this routine, we go here, we go there. We don't have to think about it, right? It's just natural. We know what to do. We know what to expect. We know what's coming. And the stress of every day being different, it's a lot of brain work. Constantly trying to figure out what you're doing today. It's different than yesterday. It's not the same. And I'm sure you're feeling the stress of it. So your kiddos are probably feeling that as well. Just not knowing. It's kind of funny, I guess. Funny in a maybe not funny way. Ironic way that so many people I've heard say, I don't even know what day it is anymore. Every day is like Groundhog Day. You're just doing the same thing. You're working from home. One thing flows into the next. People are staying up really late working. Actually, statistics showing that you're working more than you did when you went to a place of employment. So a lot of things are lacking structure, and your children will feel that. Also, too much screen time, I'm sorry to say, that can stress kids out too. So if you have any way to adjust some screen time, give some real life play time, that would be an amazing thing to do for you and your family, is to get out of in front of a screen when you can and enjoy real life for a little bit. So some stress reducers, ways to help prevent some of that. Spiritual activities, physical play, creativity, rest, healthy food, safety and structured routine, and age-appropriate information. We talked a little bit about that, but a lot of these are just physical needs, right? To rest, to eat healthy, to play. Those are all that physical activity. These are some physical needs, and it's time for us to really pay attention to the basics. Reducing stress sometimes is simple. Just going back to the basics. Are you hydrated? Are you drinking enough water? Are your kids drinking enough water? Are they drinking enough anything to keep them hydrated, to keep their brain flowing? A lot of times, memory is impacted by lack of fluid. Hunger, I'm sure you've had a kid get hangry once in a while. I know I can get there. So making sure that those physical needs are met, that your hours of sleep are consistent, or at least bedtime, even if you're not sleeping well, at least making that a consistent priority to have your kiddos sleeping or in bed so that they can get that rest. So many of these things are just, that physical need, but also that age-appropriate information. Update them as to what is to be expected. What you do know, let them know in age-appropriate ways. If you know that in the next week, you'll be able to start going to their favorite restaurant and walk in, let them know that may be a possibility. If it's not a possibility for you, if that's not healthy for your family, let them know that some people may be going, but we're unable to. Just give it to them in their age-appropriate status, I guess. The last thing I'm going to share with you is thoughts, ways to handle thoughts and to catch our thoughts. It's so important that we reflect on what we're thinking. The amazing reality is that we can't always choose what comes into our mind, but we can definitely choose what stays in our mind. And we do get to choose some of what we put in our mind, but we have these automatic thoughts that just pop into our head, and it can be a little confusing sometimes. Like, why am I thinking that? I don't want to think that. Those automatic thoughts, in psychology, we call those automatic negative thoughts. And that acronym, ANT, has been really helpful in teaching kids about automatic negative thoughts and how to control them. So I want to just challenge you to look at the concept of the difference between a firefly and a hornet. When they're flying around, you may not really be able to tell the difference, right? But if I'm from the Midwest, so I love fireflies, and I always call them lightning bugs, by the way. But we would catch them often because they would be blinking their lights, right? So you knew it was a firefly at that point, and you wanted to go catch as many as you could and put them in a bucket, and they'd shine and glow here and there. And so that was fine. Those things are harmless. They could crawl on your fingers. We would sadly make little diamond rings out of their lights. We would do all kinds of things. They were harmless. They were friendly. But you don't want to go chasing after a hornet, right? And letting a hornet land on you, on your finger or hand, that would sting just a little bit. But unfortunately, we do have to catch our thoughts, just like we want to catch a lightning bug. It might be valuable to catch a hornet and observe it to see, is this what we think it is, or is this harmful? Is this not harmful? Is it safe? So just like you may be out chasing fireflies, it's good to chase your thoughts and to teach your kiddos to catch their thought, to look at it and see, is this harmless, like a firefly that you can enjoy, or is this something dangerous that can cause harm? It may have a purpose. Hornets might have a purpose, I don't know. But we want to make sure that this isn't something that we keep and it's dangerous. So teaching our kids how to avoid those automatic negative thoughts or how to crush them is a really powerful thing. So there are two questions that we can ask when we have a thought come into our mind. One, is that true? Is that thought true? Sometimes we feel like it's true, but we really need to ask, is it true? And then, is it 100% true? Sometimes we feel like it's 100% true, but when we really think about it, we can find that there are things about that thought that may not be true. It's possible it's not true, or it's possible it's not 100% true. If you think, he always does that to me, is that true? Is it 100% true that he always does it? I mean, aren't there some times that he doesn't? There's gotta be once or twice that you can think of. So it can't be 100%. And another question is, could anything else be true? Could something else? Well, it may be that he often yells at you when you say, turn off the TV. But maybe there are times that he comes and asks you, Mom, can I help you with something? So there may be disrespect at times, but something else that could be true is that your child is respectful and kind. So those three little questions are important to teach our kids. Is that true? Is that 100% true? And could anything else be true? Those little questions can help you, and they can help your kids. There's a book with a cute little story of an anteater that teaches some kids about those automatic negative thoughts. And it teaches those questions. It's called Captain Snout. Captain Snout and the Superpower Questions. This book is by Dr. Daniel Amen, and he is a very well-known psychiatrist that does a lot of good work with brains and all of the things that our brains can do and all of the dysfunctions. So this one thing of teaching us to ask questions of our thoughts is something that this little book teaches. And you can find it online. Read it to your kids, read it to yourself, remind yourself that we have to challenge those thoughts. Because just because it pops into your mind doesn't mean that it's true. Well, I really hope that this has been helpful to you. We here at Faith Assembly love you, and we encourage you to take time to build that safety zone for your kids, to connect, to stay calm, cool, collected, and to challenge those thoughts. We pray you have an awesome day. God bless you.